Haunted KaidanTales presents. Tonight let us speak once more of the stories hidden in the dark. I am your guide, Tsuzuri. Tonight we speak of the village that kept me. Let this be tonight's book. Mountain climbing wasn't really a hobby of mine. That day though, I just wanted to be alone. Maybe it was because work had been exhausting lately, but I was getting tired of hearing people talk all the time. I thought if I went somewhere far enough into the mountains, some place where even my phone wouldn't get a signal, maybe I could finally clear my head. So I headed for a mountain near the prefectural border. It wasn't even that tall. The trail was listed online as a beginner-friendly hiking course. I think it was late autumn. The sky had been clear that morning, and the air felt cold and clean. There were still traces of red and yellow leaves on the trees, and while I was walking, it honestly felt nice. At first, the strange part started sometime after noon. Fog began rolling in. People always say mountain weather changes quickly, but this felt unnatural. Before I realized it, everything around me had turned white. I couldn't even see a few meters ahead. Even the shapes of the trees looked blurred. And it was strangely quiet. No wind. No birds. Only the sound of my own footsteps, echoing louder than they should have. I finally started feeling uneasy and decided to turn back. But I couldn't find the trail. The hiking path I'd been walking on just moments before was gone. I panicked. My phone showed no signal. Even the map app wouldn't load. I figured if I just kept walking toward the thinner part of the fog, I'd eventually find the trail again. But no matter how long I walked, nothing changed. White fog, wet dirt, trees, over and over again. Little by little, I started losing my sense of direction. And then, I don't remember how long I'd been walking, but suddenly, I saw a light through the fog. A dim orange glow. Honestly, I felt relieved. There were people here. That alone made me feel safer. As I got closer, I saw a small village. An old village hidden deep in the mountains. Wooden houses stood side by side, all of them old and weathered. But strangely enough, the place felt lived in. Laundry hung outside, smoke drifted from chimneys. I could even hear a dog barking somewhere. Still, something felt off. That village wasn't on the map. At first I figured I just didn't know about it. I mean, maybe tiny settlements like this still existed deep in the mountains. But something about the atmosphere felt wrong. Too quiet. There were signs of people everywhere, yet almost no living sounds. I was thinking about that when I heard a voice behind me. Hey there! I nearly jumped out of my skin. When I turned around, an old man was standing there with a cane. White hair, bent back, a deep voice. You went into the mountains on a day like this? I hurriedly explained what had happened. The fog, losing the trail, not knowing where I was anymore. The old man narrowed his eyes slightly. I see. Well then, you should stay here tonight. Right then, the sliding door behind him opened, and another elderly person peeked out from inside the house. Oh, a visitor? You poor thing. You must be freezing. As if that started something, more people began appearing from the nearby houses. Every single one of them was elderly, and strangely enough, they were all incredibly kind. "We've got hot stew going. Come warm yourself. The mountains are dangerous on foggy days. You shouldn't force yourself to keep walking." They all kept saying things like that. Honestly, I felt incredibly grateful. Back then, I truly meant it. The inside of the house was much larger than it looked from outside. The smell of old wood mixed with the scent of smoke from the Irori hearth. The walls were slightly stained with soot, and the ceiling beams had darkened with age. It had to be a very old house. And yet, it didn't feel unpleasant. If anything, it felt strangely calming. "Come on, sit down." The old woman gestured toward the hearth and I sat beside it. A pot of stew bubbled over the fire. I think it had wild mountain vegetables, mushrooms, and some kind of river fish inside. Honestly, I was starving. "Thank you for the meal." The moment I took the first bite, I was surprised. It was unbelievably good. The kind of warmth that sinks deep into your body. I could feel the cold leaving me all at once. The elderly villagers smiled warmly as they watched me eat. It's been a long time since a young person came here. Nobody enters the mountains anymore these days. It gets lonely. They all seem completely normal. Nothing ghostly about them. Just elderly people living quietly in the countryside. At least that's what I thought. I started noticing something strange during dinner. The first thing that caught my attention was the clocks. There was an old pendulum clock hanging beside the hearth. It had stopped. The pendulum wasn't moving at all. The time read 3:17. Well, it was an old house. I figured it was broken. But then I noticed another clock in the next room. That one had stopped too, at the exact same time. 3:17. Feeling uneasy, I checked the clock in the hallway. Stopped. Every single clock in the house showed 3:17. Finally, I couldn't help asking. All the clocks are stopped. The moment I said that, the villagers fell silent. Only for a second, but it felt as though the entire room had frozen. Then one of the old men laughed. "Well, they're all old things." The others laughed along with him. "Out here in the mountains, time doesn't matter much anyway. The sun rises, the sun sets. That's enough." I told myself maybe that made sense. Still, I felt like I shouldn't ask any more questions. By the time dinner ended, it was completely dark outside. The fog still hadn't lifted. Beyond the sliding paper doors, everything was white. White, even though it was night. That alone felt deeply unsettling. "You should stay here tonight," one of the old men said. "It's dangerous to walk through the mountains in fog like this. By morning, it'll probably clear up." Honestly, I was exhausted, and it didn't feel like I could refuse. So I agreed to stay the night. They laid out a futon for me, and before going to sleep, I checked my phone again. Still no signal. I tried checking the time, and that was when I noticed something else. The clock on my phone. 3:17 p.m. The time hadn't moved at all since earlier. The battery wasn't dead. The screen worked perfectly fine. but the time itself had stopped. A cold sweat ran down my back, and then I heard voices from somewhere down the hallway. That person said they wanted to leave at first too. It was a quiet voice, but they settled in just fine. It's peaceful here after all. Another old man chuckled softly. Maybe next time we can use that room again. At that exact moment, the hallway creaked. The conversation stopped instantly. I couldn't move inside the futon. A few seconds later, a shadow slowly passed behind the paper door. In the end, I barely slept at all that night. Even after closing my eyes, the voices from down the hallway stayed in my head. They settled in. That phrase kept bothering me. I told myself that once morning came, I could leave. I tried forcing myself to sleep with that thought in mind. But even by morning, the fog hadn't lifted. When I opened the paper door, the world outside was completely white. The fog was even thicker than before. I couldn't see more than a few meters ahead. The villagers were already awake. They sat around the hearth, quietly eating breakfast. Morning. Did you sleep well? They all spoke as calmly as they had the day before. I gave them a vague smile and started gathering my things. The fog's still pretty bad, but I think I'll try heading back down the mountain. The moment I said that, the villagers' chopsticks stopped. No one spoke immediately. In the silence, the only sound was the crackling of the fire. Finally, the old man who had first spoken to me the day before opened his mouth. You shouldn't go today. His voice was low. If you walk through the mountains on a foggy day like this, you won't make it back. Another old woman quietly added, That's how it's always been. The mountain hides people away. She said it with a smile, but somehow it didn't sound like a joke at all. Honestly, it creeped me out, but staying there felt even worse. I'll be fine. If I just follow the path I came from, I should be able to get back somehow. I said that, then stepped outside. I could feel the eyes of the villagers on my back. Alone, I walked into the fog. But something was wrong. No matter how long I walked, the scenery never changed. The same path, the same trees, the same stones. It felt like I was walking in circles. And then I noticed footprints. Fresh footprints in the wet dirt. They weren't mine. Bare footprints. They continued deep into the fog. A terrible feeling crawled over me and I looked away. That was when I saw it. Something through the fog. A house. An old wooden house I recognized immediately. Smoke drifting from the hearth. Dried persimmons hanging outside. The very same village I had just left. A chill ran down my spine. I had been walking straight ahead. I had been going downhill. And yet somehow I was back where I started. Then I saw them. The villagers were standing outside the houses, wearing the same gentle smiles as before. We told you. On foggy days, the mountain leads people astray. Someone laughed softly. Well, there's no need to panic. It's quiet here. There's food. There's a place to sleep. Every one of them spoke kindly. They weren't angry, they weren't threatening me. And yet, I had never felt so terrified in my life. That was when I noticed something strange. At the far end of the village there was a collapsed house. I was sure it hadn't been there yesterday. The roof had caved in and half the walls were gone. In front of it an old sign had fallen into the mud. Most of the writing was filthy and faded, but I could still read it. Memorial for the Maude, Tori village. Below that, more weathered words continued. Destroyed in a landslide disaster in 1977. The moment I read that, "Don't look," a voice spoke right behind me. So close it was almost against my ear. I turned around. The old man was standing there. Just moments ago he had been much farther away. The old man smiled quietly. "You should come back before you get cold again." The instant I saw that smile, for the first time I truly understood that I needed to run. I ran, straight into the fog. I nearly tripped over and over again, but I didn't stop. I never looked back even once. Branches cut across my face. I slammed my shoulder against trees. Still, I kept running. I didn't want to go back to that village. I don't know how long I ran. My lungs burned and my legs were ready to give out. Then, suddenly, the fog disappeared. The world opened up in front of me. I was standing on a mountain road. A familiar hiking trail, guardrails, warning signs, and my car, still parked where I had left it. I collapsed right there on the spot. I made it. I truly thought I was safe. But something felt wrong. My car looked filthy. The windshield was covered in dead leaves, as if it had been abandoned there for weeks. A terrible feeling crept over me, and I pulled out my phone. The signal had returned. The screen was flooded with notifications. Family, work, the police. Missed calls everywhere. The moment I looked at the date on the screen, my blood ran cold. 3 months had passed since the day I entered the mountain. After that, I told the police everything. But of course, they didn't really believe me. If anything, they were more surprised that I had somehow survived in the mountains for 3 whole months. I told them about the village, the old people, the house with the hearth, the road hidden inside the fog. But they said no such village existed on any map. Apparently there had once been a small settlement in those mountains that was destroyed by a landslide long ago. Still, the exact location was unclear. No one could say whether it matched the place I had seen. I ended up quitting my job too. A person who disappears for 3 months can't exactly return to normal life. I worried my family badly. Honestly, I never wanted to think about that mountain again. And yet, as time passed, a strange feeling stayed with me. I should have been terrified. I had desperately wanted to escape, and yet, what I remembered most was the warmth of the hearth, the smell of the stew, the warmth of that old house, the quiet voices, the feeling of a place where nobody rushed you. There were no clocks there, no sense of time, just people living quietly inside the fog. Sometimes I catch myself thinking, maybe it would have been okay to stay there after all. those old people weren't cruel. If anything, they treated me more kindly than most people ever had in my life. Maybe that's why, whenever it rains or whenever fog rolls in, I sometimes feel like going back to the mountains. Like maybe I could find that village again. And one more thing. I still can't forget the mountain stew I ate there. Honestly, it was probably the best meal of my life. How was tonight's story? Maybe this is what being spirited away really means. Not a terrifying place, but a place you no longer want to leave. Perhaps that's why mountains still frighten us even now. Until we meet again, when the curtain of night falls once more.